NASCAR Racing 2002 season includes most of the rules and procedures found in the NASCAR rulebook, and there are quite a few of them. A lot of NASCAR fans aren't familiar with many of the rules simply because a good portion of them are in effect only under yellow flag conditions, when the TV networks usually take a commercial break. Strapped into the cockpit, the rules are very important. They provide a safe and fair environment in which to race. This lesson will take you through the NASCAR rulebook step by step. Not all of the rules are enforced at all times. Arcade mode has a relaxed set of rules, and even in simulation mode, most of the rules are disabled in the practice and warm-up sessions. If you break one of the rules during either of those sessions, your crew chief will still let you know about it, but at least you won't have to suffer the consequences the way you would during qualifying or during the race. You have to observe the pit road speed limit. This is probably the most common penalty in the game, and it's easily avoided. First, you need to know the pit road speed limit. When you exit your pit stall, your crew chief will tell you the RPM you need to stay under in order to avoid breaking the speed limit. Remember that value is based on second gear, not first. Second, when you're exiting the pits, wait for your spotter to say, "Okay, you're clear of pit road," before you start to accelerate. Third, and most importantly, you need to practice those pit stops and make sure you give yourself enough time to get down to the speed limit when you exit the racing surface and come down onto pit road. If you break the speed limit on the way to your pit stall, you won't be black flagged, but you'll be held in your stall for 15 seconds. If you break the speed limit at any other point, you will be black flagged, and you'll have to come into the pits and serve a stop-and-go penalty. When exiting the pits, you must merge at the proper time. When you exit the pits, you can't immediately pull back into race traffic. Instead, you must stay down on the track's apron, or as far from the racing surface as possible, and below the blend line until you hear your spotter say, "Okay, merge when you can." Each track has a different merge point, but for the most part, you'll have to wait until the back straight before being allowed to merge. There's a little bit of leeway built into this rule. If you attempt to merge early, you'll hear your spotter say, "Don't merge yet." You'll be given a split second to bring the car back to a legal position. Failure to do so will trigger the penalty. If you break this rule under green flag conditions, you'll be black flagged and you'll have to serve a stop-and-go penalty. Under yellow flag conditions, you won't be black flagged, but your penalty will be to go to the end of the longer pacing line. When you enter the pits, you need to do it properly. Basically, the rule was designed to prevent cars from coming into the pits from the side in an attempt to spend as little time as possible on the speed-limited area of pit road. If you're not sure of the proper procedure for entering the pits, just start a practice session and watch one of the computer-controlled cars do it. Homestead is the only track in the game that requires the use of a special access road in order to pit legally. If you break this rule, you'll be black flagged and you'll have to come in and serve a stop-and-go penalty. You can't enter the pits when they're closed. This one's simple enough. You have to wait until the pits are open and you're eligible to pit before you can make a pit stop. This rule applies under yellow flag conditions only. When the yellow comes out, the pits close. If you're near the pits when it happens, you'll see the pit flagger display a red flag. The pits remain closed until the pace car comes around and passes the pit entrance. At that point, cars that are on the lead lap may come in and pit. All other cars must wait until the following lap, at which point the pits will be open for all cars. If you're already on pit road when the yellow flag comes out, you won't be penalized for entering a closed pit. If you break this rule, you won't be black flagged, but you'll be sent to the end of the longer pacing line. You can't pass the stop-go man. This is another simple one, and it also applies only in races with yellow flags. The stop-go man is a NASCAR official positioned at the end of pit road. He is responsible for making sure that cars exiting the pits do not interfere with the line of cars pacing around the track. The majority of the time, he'll be displaying a go signal, which means that you're free to exit the pits normally. However, when the pacing line gets close to the pit exit, the stop-go man will display the stop signal. When this happens, cars exiting the pits cannot pass the stop-go man. They must wait until the pacing line passes the pit exit and the stop-go man switches to the go signal before being allowed to exit pit road. Breaking this rule will not result in a black flag, but you'll be sent to the end of the longer pacing line. You can't drive against the traffic. This is the ultimate no-no. If you drive against the traffic, either head-on or in reverse, you'll be disqualified from the race. There is a buffer built into this rule to account for those times when it may be necessary to briefly drive against traffic in order to get back onto the track after a nasty spin or similar off-road excursion. You can't pass under caution. After the yellow flag comes out and you have raced back to the start-finish line, you are considered to be under caution. Once you're under caution, you aren't allowed to pass, and that includes the pace car too. There are two exceptions to this rule. Cars that aren't on the racing surface may be passed, and cars that are on the racing surface but which are going too slowly also may be passed. If you're not sure whether or not you should pass someone, it's better to pass and be told to fall back, rather than not pass and potentially cause a mess for all the cars behind you. Your spotter will make your life a lot easier here. Listen to him, and you won't go wrong. If you do pass someone under yellow, you'll have until the green flag flies to get back into the correct place in line. If you don't, you'll be black flagged. The penalty time will be just long enough to offset any advantage you gain. You can't pass the leader before the start-finish line on a start or restart. If you are at the front of the pacing line, in the line opposite the leader, you aren't allowed to pass the leader until he crosses the start-finish line. This rule is designed to give the leader an advantage on starts and restarts. If the leader is going too slowly, or suddenly decides to brake before the start-finish line, this rule is ignored. This is done to prevent the leader from intentionally trying to get the car in the other row to beat him to the line by braking at the last moment. Breaking this rule triggers the black flag, and you'll have to come in and serve a stop-and-go penalty. You can't pass a car in the same pacing line on the inside before the start-finish line. Huh? Actually, this one is pretty simple. On a start or restart, if you want to pass a car that's in your pacing line, you can't do it on the inside until you get to the start-finish line. Passing on the outside is okay, but you'll find that experienced drivers will guard against this tactic. This rule is in place in order to prevent people from hanging back at the start and trying to time the green flag so that they can just zoom by everybody before they get to the first corner. Again, this rule is ignored if the car in front is going too slowly. Your spotter will let you know. Breaking this rule will result in a black flag stop-and-go penalty. You can't drive around with a heavily damaged car. NASCAR does not allow cars that are heavily damaged to continue driving around the track, so if you're damaged to the point that you're dropping debris or fluids on the racetrack, you can expect to see the black flag. In this case, your pit crew will have to repair your car to an acceptable state before you'll be allowed back onto the track. Sometimes you may be damaged to the point that it won't be possible for the crew to repair your car. In this case, you'll have no alternative but to retire from the race. This type of black flag penalty is the only one which may be cleared under yellow or green flag conditions. After all, NASCAR doesn't want cars dropping debris all over the racetrack for an entire caution period. When you race with yellow flags turned on, you'll need to decide whether or not you'd like to use single file or double file restart rules. In a double file restart, any cars that are one or more laps down are allowed to form a second pacing line on the inside of the lead lap cars. Not surprisingly, a single file restart keeps all the cars in a single pacing line. Whether it's due to an accident, a bad pit stop, or a poorly timed caution flag, it's easy to lose a lap during a NASCAR race. Getting back onto the lead lap is much easier if you can take the restart from near the front of the field rather than from behind a long line of lead lap cars. That's precisely why NASCAR introduced double file restarts. It gives cars a better chance of getting back onto the lead lap. NASCAR uses double file restarts almost all of the time. There are only two exceptions. First, they aren't used if there are fewer than 10 laps remaining in the race, and second, they are never used at the road courses. NASCAR Racing 2002 season follows the same rules, so remember that even if you select double file restarts, you'll get a single file one if there are fewer than 10 laps to go or if you're at a road course. So how does a double file restart work? Well, it works the same way a single file restart does, right up until the point when the 1 lap to green signal is given. That's when the lights on the pace car will go out and you'll hear your crew chief say, "We're going green next time by." At that point, you can pull to the inside and line up on the inside of the lead lap cars. If you're in the wrong place, your spotter will let you know. Be sure to use that F2 box to know which cars are close by, so that if your spotter tells you to pass or stay behind a particular car, you'll know where that car is. So those are the rules that you'll have to pay attention to when out on the track. As you can see, there's quite a bit to go over during the driver's meeting. But don't worry, if you can't remember all these rules, just listen to your spotter, and he'll keep you out of trouble.